Today, we're looking at a green ink by Monteverde Erinite. Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. There's timestamps down below so that you can skip around, but if you got the time, I would appreciate if you check out the entire video. Also, if you're interested, you can check me out over on Instagram, and if you're new here and like fountain pen inks, I would invite you to subscribe. In order to make sure I have a range of experience with this ink, I do the writing samples. I then put it into this Noodler's Nib Creeper, wrote with it for a day, and used it to take the notes for this video. In order to standardize some of the writing sample, I always use Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. Now, more papers are tested, and they'll show up a bit later. Now, let's look at the writing sample. I picked this ink up in sample form, so it comes in something like this. And to keep my writing samples consistent, I use a Jinhao 159 with a Goulet 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X 450 with a Goulet medium, and a Jinhao X 750 with a Goulet extra fine. Let's take a look at the Clairfontaine. We get no bleeding and no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather, spread, halo sheen. It does offer some shading. It's very subtle in how it's occurring because if you look at Erinite, you see there's a difference in its tone from Monteverde, and the TE is much darker than the rest of the word. Extra fine is a slightly lighter than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, very nice shading throughout. Quick starts darker, gets lighter, gets darker. Brown starts darker, works its way lighter. Jumps starts lighter and works its way darker, so very nice, and 8 seconds to dry. Now medium is ever so slightly lighter than the extra fine, with no feather spread, halo sheen, and the shading shows up even better. Quick is dark on the left side of the Q, light on the right side of the Q, works its way light, very dark at the K. Brown starts dark, works its way light. Over starts light, works its way dark. And only 11 seconds to dry for this magicalness. The scrubby for both show us tons of color variation. Far left to far right, it's huge. It shows up much more in the medium than it does in the extra fine, but it's definitely there for both. Tomoe River. No bleeding, normal Tomoe River ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. Now the extra fine is a little lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen. It does offer some decent shading. Brown starts dark, works its way light. Fox is a very nice word, but the bottom loop of the F is darker than the whole rest of the word. It draws attention to that spot. Over starts lighter, works darker. The is lighter to darker. 14 seconds to dry. Now the medium is about the same tone as the extra fine. No feather spread, halo sheen, plenty of great shading. It really comes through nice here. Quick starts dark, gets light, gets very dark again. Brown starts very dark, works its way light, much darker at the N than the W. Fox is light to dark, 18 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both don't really show us a lot of color variation, although it does come through in the writing. And Rhodia. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is quite a bit lighter than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, but the shading is very nice. The Q is very dark. The C is much lighter. On the Q, it's dark on the left and lighter on the right. It's nice stuff. Brown starts dark and works its way light. Fox is light at the top of the F, dark at the bottom of the F. Light into the O, very dark at the X. Nice shading. 9 seconds to dry. Medium is about the same tone as the extra fine. It has no feather spread, halo sheen. The shading is about the same as the extra fine. Fox is light at the top of the F, dark at the bottom of the F. Light into the O, very dark at the X. Brown starts dark and works its way light. Quick, the Q is dark on the left and light on the right. Beautiful stuff. 12 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both show us plenty of color variation, and we got plenty of color variation. I agree with Vita that I've learned a lot by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. I put a line of ink down and immediately put it into water for 10 to 15 seconds. And we can see where the little bit of punchiness that this ink can have comes from. It's got a very bright green as its base ink, but it's also got a very bright blue at the top. It's making it have the ability to lean to being a darker green through that blue. Now the one on the right, I let dry for 10 minutes before I dunk it into water. And truly, you don't see a tremendous difference between these two, which means I don't expect a whole lot of hold on with this ink. Resistance tests are done to see how well this ink can be expected to perform on the page and how hard it may be to clean from your pen. I let the smear dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, I'm very surprised at how well this did. The lowercase h has a little bit of feathering that's occurring with it, but not too bad. I am shocked at how well this did with the highlighter, making me feel okay to use it in a note-taking situation if I had to go back and highlight. That's based off the chromatography, but then look at what happens with water. Water is completely obliterating this off the page. With only 30 seconds, almost every bit of this ink is gone. Give it slightly longer and absolutely water is all that it takes. So naturally, Pen Flush completely removes it from the page, even though you're not going to need to use it. And the 1/3 bleach solution, although you have no excuse to use it here, does completely obliterate it. I test the viscosity or flow using a tilt test, which I'm going to link the video showing how I do that. For the inks I've tested, I have found an average viscosity of 2.5, with the realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Monteverde Erinite has a viscosity of 2.26, making it normal. To find my average dry times, I use my writing samples done on Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. I average those, and what I found is the average dry time is 17 seconds, with the realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. Monteverde Erinite has an average dry time of 12 seconds, making it a little bit faster drying than normal. Instead of finding an ink that looks like Monteverde Erinite, I would prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I chose a nice red, Colorverse C Europa, because I really liked the Europa report as a movie, and I love that Colorverse names so many of their inks after movies. The second writing sample is done on Apica, black and red, and Franklin Christoph paper. Here we're looking at Apica CD notebooks. It has no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is a noticeably lighter tone than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, plenty of very nice shading. Quick starts dark, gets light, gets dark. Brown starts light and works its way, starts dark and works its way light. Fox starts light and works its way dark. Very nice, and only 6 seconds to dry. Medium is slightly darker than the extra fine, not quite as dark as the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, and absolutely gorgeous shading. Look at what's going on with Fox. Dark to light in the middle to very dark on the X. 3-letter word. 2 color changes. Dog starts light, works its way dark, then goes down to a mid-tone. Very nice. 9 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us plenty of color variation, and we got plenty of color variation. How about black and red notebooks? Well, we get no bleeding and no ghosting. The 1.1 is no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. But the extra fine, being noticeably lighter than the stub, has no feather spread, halo sheen, and great shading. Look at the word brown. Dark to light. Beautiful. Dog starts very light, gets very dark at the top of the D to O, but in the O goes very light. Very nice. 4 seconds to dry. Medium is slightly darker than the extra fine, just a hair lighter than the stub. It has no feather spread, halo sheen, and the shading is pretty darn good. Quick starts dark, gets light, all in the Q. It works its way up, darker all the way through to very dark at the K. The starts light and gets dark. Dog is a noticeably lighter tone as a word than the word jumps. So very nice changing of shading that's happening here. And 6 seconds to dry. The scrubby of the extra fine and the medium do show us some color variation. We got more in the medium than we did in the extra fine, but it is there all the way. Last up, Franklin Christoph. no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade. The extra fine is a noticeably lighter tone than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade. 4 seconds to dry. Medium is darker than the extra fine, right about the same tone as the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade, and 5 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby of the medium shows us some color variation. Scrubby of the fine shows us none, but we really don't get it in the writing sample at all, and that is all that I have for writing samples. So what do I think of Monteverde's Erinite? While I like green inks, this one is especially energetic. Its shading is absolutely fantastic. The tone, like I said, makes you feel better on the day. So use it when you're not feeling well, and you're just going to feel better. It's magic. So what nib and pen will give the best writing experience with this ink? While it looks good out of every single nib I used it in, I found that while using it in a stub, it really made the shading jump out even more, which made me say, I'm going with a medium flow stub. I'm going to remind you that I'm here every day with a new ink review. Thanks for watching.